So let's go through the brush tool. We've used the brush tool when we were using mask to paint black and white pixels on the mask, but you can do a little bit more than just masking with the brush. So I'm going to hit B on my keyboard. That's the quick key for this tool group. And I'm going to long mouse click here, and we have the brush tool grouped in here, pencil, color replacement, and mixer brush. But we are using the brush tool, which is the very first one. Now, the option bar up here will display all of the settings for this particular tool, the brush tool. The default is a 13-point round brush with faded edges on it. We're going to talk about those settings here in a minute. So the way the brush works is down here on your toolbar, in your toolbox, you have foreground and background color. Whatever your current foreground color is the color that you're going to get when you apply the brush. So I'm just going to go ahead and drag out a line here. You can see the edges are, if I zoom in a little bit with Control Plus, they're a little bit faded or feathered. And again, that's the default setting for the brush. And we know that we can use these square bracket keys to increase or decrease the brush size. Or you can go to the options bar and you can increase the size this way. This is a little bit more time consuming to go through the options bar. Again, you can use the square bracket keys. You can see my cursor. If I use the right square bracket key, I can increase the size, or left bracket key, decrease the size. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and revert this file to clean up my mess here. So you can either do file revert, or if the F12 keyboard shortcut works for you, you can do that as well. So let's talk about how do you change the color. So if I want to change the color, I can go to my swatches panel here and I can pick a different color brush, and you'll see it changes your foreground color. You can do it that way, or I'm going to just F12 again, or you can just double click the foreground color in your toolbox and get a color picker, and that way you're not restricted to what you see here in the swatches panel. Same idea. All right, let's undo that. So you can either F12, or I just did one stroke, so I'm going to do a quick Control-Alt-Z to undo. All right, let's go into some other options here. So we're going to work kind of left to right. We have our brush size, etc. here. So when you click on this icon, we have obviously the size settings. Hardness is the softness of the brush. So with a 0% hardness, right, we got this. If I go in here and I increase the hardness, let's go up however much, you'll see. You can compare the two. So if I take the hardness value all the way up to 100%, I get a nice crisp line. Now this is a round brush, that's why you're getting those little bubbles on it. Let's F12 that again. Okay, so these are the basics. You can change the angle of the brush, but when you change the angle of a circle, you don't get any, it's not going to really do anything here. But you can pinch this right here, and now you can kind of create a ribbon effect. Okay, so that was back in the same icon here, and so you can either, and depending on which direction you go, you get a different result. So if I pick a different color, maybe you can see it a little bit better. And if you increase or decrease the brush size, same idea. All right, I'm going to F12 again. I'm going to reset my tool. So to reset the tool, you right mouse click right here on the far left on your options bar, reset tool. Don't reset all tools, just the one tool. Okay, so reset the tool. It's going to reset the brush. Takes you back to your 13-point 0% hardness settings. Okay, so we have a flyout menu here. When you click on this little gear icon, you have some other options here. I'm not going to go through all of these in this video. So the other thing that I want to show you here is you have categories of brushes here. So you can expand this and you can see these are preset brushes. So you might see something in there that you like, depending on what it is, you're trying to do, and it gives you a preview. If you want to see what this does, just grab it, and there you go. If I want to change this brush, right, I can still change by going into this icon again, and then I can pinch it, change the angle, and you're going to get a little bit different look, depending on which tool and what changes you make. All right, let's F12 that again. I'm going to right-click, reset the tool one more time. So again, you can explore all of these presets that are in here. Some other things you can do is this icon, which is your brush settings. So brush settings, when you click this icon, brings up two different options here. Okay, so we already went through this. Brush settings gives you a whole lot of different options here. We have some of the same things we saw earlier, right? So we've got size, hardness. We also have what's called spacing now. Spacing, if you increase the spacing, when you can create these dots. So you have to, I'm not going to go through every single option in here, but it is fun to explore what happens. So, if you change the angle and you choose a different style brush and increase the spacing, you can see here, you can create a variety of different looks. Okay. And now let me get a different color here so you can see a little bit better. So if I want my dots closer together, I can decrease the spacing. All right, I'm going to F12, clean up this mess. Couple of the other things that I want to show you. So each of these checkbox items here, you can turn them all on. I don't recommend turning them all on at once. But when you click on and check it, you can't really see the options. You actually have to click on the words, and then this side panel will adjust and display different things. So I've turned on scattering, but let's click on the word scattering. And now we have new options. I can scatter. Watch what happens when I increase this. I can change the count. That's how many dots will show. Whoops, that's count. There we go. Count jitter is going to change it from either a lot or a little, depending on which way you go. So jitter is going to be the amount of change. So we have this. Now, under shape dynamics, we have things like angle jitter. Roundness jitter, we can change all kinds of things. Again, I can't go through everything in a short video, but you can see here we can create some pretty interesting effects by going in. So again, not just clicking on the checkbox, but clicking on the words that will bring up all of these extra settings you can do. All right, I'm going to go through one more in this. Let me F12 here. I want to go through color dynamics. Color dynamics, again, if you just click the words, it automatically turns on the checkbox. Now, color dynamics is pretty cool. So I have a foreground color here. I want to change my background color, so I'm going back to my toolbox on the bottom left over here. I want something in kind of contrast to my foreground color. And when you're in color dynamics, if you turn this option on, apply per tip, and you increase the foreground and background jitter, what it's going to do is mix these two colors. Now we have hue, saturation, brightness. We talked a little bit about this when we were doing the adjustment layers. I'm going to just slide all these up a little bit, and now you can see here I've got a variety of different things because I've got all these other settings. But with color dynamics, you can see here I didn't change my brush foreground color. Based on these two colors that are in my foreground and background here, I have created automatically changing the colors for me. So if I go back up here to my brush tip and I change it to yet a different brush altogether, it's going to be ugly, but you get the idea. I'm going to collapse this for a second. I'm going to F12 just so you can see what this does. And again, because I have the color dynamics on here, now watch what happens if I change my foreground color to yet a different color. Now, use that same brush, you see I can get even more color variation because I've changed this. I can swap those, then see what that does. I can increase or decrease the brush size to get, different looks. So it's all about kind of playing around with these different things. All right. Mode, I'm going to suggest that you stay in the normal mode. We only have one layer. We'll talk about blending modes later. Then we have opacity. So if you lower the opacity, let me do an F12 here. Lower the opacity, you get lighter. If you have 100% opacity, you're getting your darker colors. Next on the list, we have the pressure. This is more for when you're using a drawing tablet. I'm not going to go over that right now. And then flow. Flow is going to keep the same amount. If you think about dipping your brush into a paint bucket, We have F12 here, so if I decrease the flow, it sort of runs out of paint. That's all that does. Then we have our airbrush here. So I think I have to change this. Again, I don't use all of these all the time. You can go in there and explore. Smoothing, generally speaking, you just kind of, it's not something that I particularly mess with here. The next thing we have, again, just go in and experiment with these things. I wanted to go through the basics, and again, the basics are controlled here, and then you've got your brush settings. So another thing you can do if you don't remember to use this icon, if you go to Window, you can bring up your brush settings here. There's a keyboard shortcut of F5 and brushes here, but if you bring up the brush settings, it typically is grouped with the brushes. Again, we've already talked about customizing your workspace. You can undock these things, group them however you want. But anyway, so after you do all of these brush changes, I would suggest that you set everything back to normal because it's hard to remember what you changed and go in there and turn things on and off. So again, if I just right click, reset the tool, back to square one, and now I've got my basic brush here. So that's how you use the brush tool. Again, that's quick key B, and it's the first tool in that tool group.